Hello, and welcome to our presentation on the kelp plant, otherwise known as the wonder plant. So this is an examination of its unique properties and its relationship to ocean acidification. So our group comprises of Sean Davis, Lauren Price, Erica Selby, and me, Jessica Smolaroff. So why is kelp the wonder plant? Kelp forests are some of the most diverse uh, ecosystems in the world. This plant is highly productive at capturing carbon from the atmosphere, making it a resource for ocean acidification. They also provide food, shelter, and breeding grounds for thousands of marine life species, including seals, sea urchins, sea stars, and crustaceans. The, the future of kelp forests is currently being threatened, so conservation efforts are crucial. So some of their biggest threats are pollution, overfishing, and continuous climate change. All right. Whenever you're ready, Erica Selby.
All right. What is what is ocean acidification and how does kelp help reduce it? Ocean acidification is the result of the excess carbon put off into the atmosphere from unsustainable industrial practices. The carbon is absorbed into the water and collects until there is enough carbon to change the pH balance of the water and harm marine ecosystems that are unable to adapt to the change. The death and erasure of life in the ocean removes its ability to cool down, thus contributing to the warming of the ocean. Kelp, however, has the ability to absorb this excess carbon and recycle it in a way that does not harm its ecosystem. Kelp's photosynthesis process is able to perform carbon fixation that allows it to draw in more carbon than the average plant would be able to, and as that plant goes through photosynthesis, the carbon is assimilated into the tissues of the plant where they cannot be released until the plant tissues die off and are incorporated into the sediment on the ocean floor. An experiment published by the Journal of Applied Phycology in 2024 determined that the carbon content in the average sized kelp specimen is estimated to be 33.47% of its dry biomass. How does kelp help impact marine biodiversity? Kelp forests, grown without human intervention, develop over decades in rocky marine environments. In these environments, there are not many places for marine creatures to inhabit. Kelp gives them a surface to colonize and grow on. In addition to being the foundation of these creatures' homes, kelp is also an important source of nutrients, with an article by researcher Thurkoff determining a connection between local kelp farms and an increase in the richness of surrounding fish and mobile invertebrates. Seeing as kelp is a staple resource for marine ecosystems, an important question to ask is what would happen if kelp was taken out of an ecosystem? Besides the loss of surface area for creatures to inhabit, kelp provides protection from the ocean's current, acting as a break in the harsh torrents that make it even harder for marine life to inhabit the rocky areas kelp thrives in. LaShawn?
Oh, I was mute, my bad. Kelp has a lot of benefits, but it also has some challenges. One of the biggest problem in the ocean is that it's getting warmer because of the climate change. Since kelp grows best in cold waters, warm temperatures make it hard for kelp to survive. It also affects the animals that depend on them for water and protection. Even though kelp can help the environment, it is not enough to solve the problem on its own. Scientists says that we still need to reduce carbon carbon dioxide if we want to slow it down. Climate change and ocean overfishing is another issue because it changes the food change, which can make it harder for kelp to stay healthy. I
So,
really, uh, my bad.
so I'm in contradiction to what LaShawn just presented about, I want to reinforce the claims made by Erica and Jessica on how it does help. So I did a research on this experiment that scientists did to show how the increased acidity in future oceans would affect the kelp species, called Echolonia radiata, which forms habitats in the waters off of Australia and New Zealand. The scientists simulated the natural fluctuations in pH levels that take place in kelp forests in order to assess how kelp grows under present ocean and future ocean acidity levels. In current ocean conditions, these pH variations in nature help increase the growth of kelp and boost its photosynthesis, indicating that kelp thrives in environment it creates. When the average pH of seawater was reduced to mimic ocean acidification in the future, these benefits were nullified and it just didn't work. These results indicate that as ocean acidification gets worse, productivity of kelp forests will decrease as will their ability to improve the water quality of neighboring marine organisms. So some key takeaways to everything would be that number one, kelp naturally helps in the regulation of water chemistry. During the daytime, the kelp removes the carbon dioxide in seawater through photosynthesis. This makes the water around it like less acidic. So number two would be natural pH variations currently favor the growth of kelp. The kelp growing under natural pH variations grew much faster compared to the kelp growing under a stable pH environment. Number three, in ocean acidification in the future makes kelp less resilient. After scientists decreased the pH of the water for modeling future ocean conditions, all benefits of natural pH variation were eliminated. Number four would be less efficient kelp may be less capable of protecting oceans acidification. Less efficient kelp will take less carbon dioxide out of the water, so will not be able to increase local pH as effectively. And the last point that I have would be the conservation of kelp forests is still vital. Although the future acidification of oceans will lessen some of kelp's buffer capacity, healthy kelp forests are still among the most vital coastal ecosystems.
All right, so I just want to talk a little bit about uh, photosynthetic or photosynthesis and the carbon capture of the kelp plant species. So for the first time in recent history, scientists have been able to map the molecular arrangement of of kelp's photosynthetic machinery. So you can see that right here. And it's like a rod, it's like an antenna. So they mapped the macrocystic pyrifera photosystem 1, and it has two proteins that contain the pigments chlorophyll and fucoxanthin. So we're familiar with chlorophyll, it reflects green and absorbs blue. So so fucoxanthin is a brown orange pigment that is highly effective at absorbing blue green wavelength from the sun. So it has a 99% quantum efficiency of transferring these excited electrons into photosystem 1. And that makes its productivity is 3 times higher rate than its marine counterpart, the phytoplankton, making it the most net productive marine biome unit. So the results could improve biology inspired captured carbon systems, engineer more efficient photosynthetic organisms, which would increase crop productivity and help us better understand and eventually protect kelp forests. So I also want to talk about uh, more of what researchers have found in kelp forests and their relationship to pharmaceuticals. So kelp forests are this is new ground. This is novel. They're finding these microorganisms that work as antibacterial properties. So they have found 90 strains of actinobacteria from the kelp, and about half of them inhibit growth of the bacteria that we commonly see in yeast infections and staph infections. So, and while others from the 90 strains were able to inhibit growth against certain cancer cells while also not harming healthy cells. So, in a different study, they were able to use AI to extract and purify this compound lectin from this kelp species Euchema sera. So lectins, what they do is that they bind to carbohydrates on the surface of cells. And so they are excellent markers of the change in sugar molecule of cancerous cells. So they're able to bind to the cell, cause cell death, halt tumor growth. So that makes them this really valuable tool for the future of cancer research, infectious diseases, and drug development. So that concludes our presentation. I hope you learned something about kelp. So what we've learned is that kelp, it may not be a perfect solution, but it has the opportunity for new research in the world of farming, pharmaceuticals, and resistance to ocean acidification.